allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
When you're ready. Karen Kindness? Here. Rod Parrish?
Here.
Johanna Donahue?
Here.
Tim Parrish?
Here.
Lita Drain?
Here. Any public comments? Okay, seeing none. Number 4, we have our audit presentation. George Roach.
All right. How about if I just stand here
That's great,
at
thank
the
you.
podium? I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to work with you again this year. As you may or may not know, what you have before you is what they would call a clean opinion or non-modified opinion, which basically says that the financial statements, namely the balance sheet or the statement position, are materially corrected in the presentation, and we agree with that, as well as the statement of activities are materially correct for the revenues and disbursements over the course of the year. Might have to forgive me, these fog really bad. And it takes a while for the blur to go down. For some of you that haven't been through an audit, basically an audit, you've been through one
Nope.
too? I didn't think so.
Yeah.
And in the scope of an audit, we usually look at the internal control structure, the system of how revenues are brought in and how disbursements go through the entity. And then after discussing that with those people that are in charge of those activities, looking for areas where there should be, segregation of duties, where 2 people should be involved with dispersing and receiving of cash, rather than one person involved with the whole thing. And in doing that, we look to see how involved you guys are in terms of reviewing the invoicing and the disbursements, as well as then the statements you get on a monthly basis of the revenues or the receipts for the entity over the course of the month, course of the year. And then we test those by doing a sampling. We will sample at random disbursements. In fact, we'll go back and we'll pick check copies at random, and then we'll go look for the underlying documents to support those disbursements, make sure those documents have been authorized, and then also trace those disbursements into the accounts where they were supposed to be recorded in. Likewise, look at the bank to see if that was the amount that the document, the check cleared for and reconciled at the end of the month with the bank statement. And in doing that, we found invoices to support all the activities that we looked at, all the items that we selected. Similarly, we look at revenues. We do third-party confirmation. We look namely at the county to see what monies that were dispersed to you in your name. We trace those into your bank account to make sure that they were received by you in the same amount that the county would disperse them, and that they were recorded accordingly in the correct funds. And so in doing that, we found that the recordation of the receipts were in line with what the third parties had dispersed them in. So that's a little bit of what we do, just kind of in a nutshell, to kind of corroborate, that the function of the entity is following the processes that you'd set up. So let me, since you're new, I'll do the shorter presentation, hour long. Anyway, I like to just do a synopsis too. There's about 2 pages that are really the summary of most of the audit. Page 16, basically it's a balance sheet, or some people call it net position. In terms, it shows all the assets, the liabilities, and then what's left over, or the fund balance. At the end of last year, the things that you usually trace are how much cash did you have? You had about $1.8 million in total. That'd be at the top right-hand. That's across all funds. Now, each of those funds have a separate function. General fund's kind of the overriding one. The others are called special revenue type funds. The revenues that are received are to be used for those funds exclusively. So at the end of the year, our fund balance was a little over $2.1 million. The other page is 2 pages behind that. That's basically the activities or the income statement, how much you made, how much you spent. Over the course of the year, we had an excess of revenues over expenditures of about $830,000. A lot of times in some of the funds we'll have a growth in those funds because Mike's is one, for example. You don't do big projects every year. And so sometimes you'll have a growth in that fund, but it's just because they're saving up money for a bigger project next year. The general fund had an excess of about $160,000 over the expenditures of the year. Your fund balance at the end of the year for the general fund was about $710,000, which is about 10 months of expenditures. So that's a good fund balance. Of course, you know, we like to see, you know, about 6 months for a small entity because big numbers can really hit small entities pretty hard, especially those that have, you know, a lot of hard assets and a lot of activity-based items that need to be supported. Other than that, you know, the road in its funds, you know, had excess of revenues over expenditures, but like I said, that's common in some years. Some years you're going to see a big deficit, but you know, you're going to be doing some big projects. So those are the two. The other, your IMRF, is fully funded. I can grab that sheet and talk through it if you want. The one I like to talk about is on page 31. So right now we're overfunded in the IMRF, and I just wanted to explain that IMRF is based off an actuarial assumption. There's a lot of assumptions that goes into the computation of it. How long a person's going to live, what their pay rates are going to be over the course of the rest of their employment there, how much money is being made by the investment fund, or a few. And then we put all of those together and they come up with an estimate of how much is going to be needed in savings to support the pensions of those people as they live out the remainder of their estimated life. And right now we've got that covered. However, I just wanted to show you at the bottom of the page, if we change one estimate, just the rate of return by 1%, you know, if it decreases, our overpayment turns into an underfunded by $300,000. So that's just one of the estimates. Now, oftentimes they'll have a change in actuarial mortality tables, which means how long somebody will live, and that will have a big impact on what that liability is. Because if you add, you know, 3 or 4 years on the end of somebody's life, those are all at high dollar compensation numbers, so that grows that liability significantly. So at this time, you know, you're funded. It's a good program because it's a pay-as-you-go program, unlike some of the other plans that are out there that are voluntary in terms of what the contribution rates are. So, but all in respect, you had excess of revenues over expenditures this year. We didn't find any other items that were needing to be noted. Staff was helpful in getting everything that we needed. It's kind of a crazy year trying to do audits, some semi-remotely and remotely, and then, you know, on site. So It kind of taxed the communication, the emails and all of that stuff to make it happen. And just thanks for getting everything that we needed and responses back to us on a very timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Lita's doing a good job.
Are you doing a good job?
Lita.
Well, I was gonna say you had excess of revenues over expenditures.
But all reporting now, but
Yeah, so I didn't find any, items that I needed any other information on. Most of the stuff that, is kind of a joint thing with you guys, how she worked in terms of, you know, what, projects and overall governance, you know, the township. So, yeah, things went well.
cool.
If something pops up and, you know, you can get it to Lita, get it to me, and I'll get back to you if you have any other questions after looking at it. All right?
Thanks, George.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lita.
Thank you, Lita.
Thank you all, we all work well together. All right, number 6, review and approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting dated Thursday, September 19th.
Motion.
Second,
I'll second.
discussion, comments? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we pass. Motion carries, thank you. Number 7. Oh, I forgot about that. Review and approval of the town fund transfer of appropriation. The assessor's office is looking to move $100 from contingencies to equipment.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Third.
Who do we have?
Pick one.
That's fine, whatever.
Anyone wanted any questions or anything about it?
Did he say
A
what?
printer broke,
Yeah.
Okay.
so we had to buy a printer. Do a roll call, when you're ready.
Rob Parrish,
Yes.
Tim Parrish,
Yes.
Karen Sinus,
Yes.
Johanna Donahue,
Yes.
Lita Drain,
Yes. Motion carries. Number 8, township warrants for approval for payment for October 14th in the amount of $46,374.30.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
There was a bill in there for whistleblower policy with the attorney firm. I'm just curious what that was.
It's a new
You know,
state,
I,
yeah.
it's sitting in my inbox. It's a state law, I'll have it for you next month. It's a new state law that you can't retaliate against whistleblowers. I'm not sure where it started, but every unit of local government has to approve the anti-whistleblower policy, anti-whistleblower retaliation policy. It's kind of silly. I think we'll have that for you next month. I'm sorry, it's sitting in my inbox.
We have to vote to adopt it every year? Or this is just?
One time.
One-time adoption, but then you have to notify your employees annually of it, kind of like the sexual harassment training stuff that it's supposed to be once a year. So you already can't retaliate against whistleblowers, but this says it again.
Anything else?
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Nothing else? Whenever you're ready, Tony.
Karen Sinus,
Yes.
Rob Parrish,
Yes.
Tim Parrish,
Yes.
Johanna Donahue.
Yes.
Lita Drain,
Yes. Motion carries. Number 9, road district warrants for approval for payment for October 14th in the amount of $197,756.67.
So moved.
Second. Karen? Yeah.
Comments, discussion?
Mike, do you have any idea how many ton you've run through the paver this year?
Between 8,000 and 9,000.
Do you have any idea how much you've spent on it? I see a screed in here for screed improvements for $3,200.
What was your question, Ron?
How much do you think you've spent on maintenance of the machine this year?
I would have to look it up.
Okay. My next question is, I know there was a whole mulch gate that went on. There's a bill in here for Midwest Organics for $80 worth of mulch that we purchased. Where did that go?
No, let me explain that. So, after the mulch got delivered to my house, I told Casey, take a load to Midwest Organics, because they wouldn't give us a straight answer what it cost to dump it there. I told them, take a load over there and see what it costs to dump it. That's what that fee is.
So that's a dump fee, that's not a purchase fee.
Correct.
Okay.
Can I ask about the mulch now, or do I need to wait for new business?
Wait,
Okay.
any other comments, discussions, questions?
I see one more big bill in there for culverts. How many more culverts are left in the township to replace?
A lot.
We've done a tremendous amount. We've done way more than council ever thought about doing.
You're absolutely right.
Do you think everyone needs to come out, or do you systematically go down the road and determine good and bad?
The latter. We systematically go down the road and determine which ones need replacement. We had a lady complain just the other day in the Pine subdivision that we didn't replace hers. We took it out, reset it at the right grade because it was in good condition. There was no reason to replace it.
Right.
But, if they're not gonna last in this next paving cycle, then they gotta go.
Right.
And, you know, we have big oodles of pictures, piles of culverts, that the tops are there, but if you replace culverts, you know, the bottoms are rusted away.
Right, especially if they don't have pitch.
Yes.
Anything else?
That's all I got right now.
Anybody else? Tony, whenever you're ready, please.
Johanna Donahue,
Yes.
Tim Parrish,
Yes.
Rob Parrish,
Yes.
Karen Tinus,
Yes.
Rita Drain,
Yes.
motion carried.
Motion carries. Number 10, discussion and approval of posting of the 22 levies for all township, including town fund, general assistance, fund, road and bridge, permanent hard road, IMRF, insurance, social security, and cemetery fund.
So moved.
This is just for posting.
Second.
Discussion, I was thinking a lot about this, and I think even though it's typed up as the flat, leaving it flat, I think we should take our abatement off and just lower it by the 100,000.
I'll second that. I'll third that.
And if we, depending on our position, if we wanna do further abatements, we can, but why are we abating every year? Let's just lower the levy.
Good call. Yeah,
Call.
that's what we discussed originally when we had our first budget hearing with Lee is, let's try it. Don't send ourselves too far the wrong way when we can keep abating, but then eventually it doesn't show good.
Well, we've confirmed we're in a
Right.
good
Yeah,
position,
I
so
agree.
let's just do it.
yes, I agree.
I will, obviously, this is just a post,
Yeah,
but I will change, the one in the packets for posting at $8.90, whatever. $8.99, $9.72,
great.
$85. just a motion, or,
That's okay.
we don't have to do anything to post it? Just all in favor?
Well, is there further discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any further discussion?
What's the intent of the road district? What are you doing with your levy?
Not there yet.
No, it's included in
I'll
this.
say, you
Yeah.
read them all out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly the same as last year.
Do you have any money you wanna abate back? You spend it all.
You know, the road district's a different operation.
I'm aware of that. You gotta have a good sized nut to
Yeah,
keep the ball rolling. But
I'm
your
sure.
spending was down 310,000 this year.
what's that?
Your spending increased 310,000 this year. You still don't think you have any extra money in there, in your next levy?
What's that?
In your next levy, you don't think you can diminish anything?
Well, I still got 140 miles of road, or 140 miles of ditches to replace culverts in. We've got through about 45% of the subdivisions in the township. It's not like I'm gonna get any less aggressive with the amount of work that we're doing.
What's the reason to be so aggressive?
I took this job to teach government workers how to work, not the opposite.
Right, but we also don't need to invent or reinvent how the township, the plan is of what we need to do for the residents of just general maintenance. I mean, new construction and re-ditching and changing topography is a little farther than just maintenance.
Well, I would disagree. If you build a ditch and you don't maintain it, how is that any different than putting up a gutter and not cleaning it out? You know, I mean, your gutters have to be cleaned, your ditches have to be cleaned. We just do a better job than everybody else. I'm not gonna not do the work that we do, sir. We're doing a good job. We're gonna continue this. It seems, I've been reelected twice, so it seems that the residents like the job that the road district is doing. I don't get many, I get enough complaints.
I'm gonna say, we have legal bills.
What's that?
We have legal bills that show that people complained.
Yeah, but the complaints aren't, the legal bill complaints aren't about ditching.
I'll disagree, because with the guy in running iron, the first year you're in there, and you,
Well, that was 8 years ago.
okay,
I stand corrected.
okay.
Shifting gears here, Mike, are the funds the same number that they were last year in regards to the general road fund is the same number, and then permanent hardware is the same number?
All of the numbers are the same as they have been, exactly the same as they have been for the last 5 years. Well, that's not true, because I have adjusted the IMRF and the Social Security and the insurance funds. They're the three that are much smaller, between $60,000 and $90,000. The fund balances fluctuate, so I, from time to time, have to raise them up to make sure that we've got enough money to cover them expenses. But the road and bridge is the same. The permanent hard road has been adjusted for the last 5 years to accommodate the changes needed in the other three smaller funds.
Yeah, I think I was a part of it 4 years ago when we went ahead and put money back into the general road, I believe. We had to adjust those numbers back to what they were the year before. But anyway, we'll discuss this in new business.
What did you say, you put money back in what?
No. So 4 years ago, it was my first year, my first time we posted the levy, you had put a different number in for general road, and permanent harbor. It came out of there and went into general road, and we had to put it back in there. I could go back and look through the minutes, I could go back and look at the old meetings, and I'm positive we went through this before, so essentially I noticed a change my first year that you were,
I don't recall that.
I can look it up if you want and.
Well, I don't know
come
if
back
it
to you.
matters, but you're free to, yeah.
It kind of does matter because that's essentially your multiplier that you kick back to municipalities.
It matters what we put back in a fund 4 years ago?
That multiplier that started before I came in is still in effect today, that those numbers change, therefore the replacement taxes to municipalities is less. It started before I even came in here. But we noticed the first year I came into this and we had this same meeting, I noticed that the numbers were different and I made you put them back. And I can go back in the meeting minutes and confirm that, but I'm positive that that was the case. So that's why I'm asking if they're the same, and you're telling me they are the same as last year.
They are the same as last year.
Okay.
Any other discussion? So all those in favor to post?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
We didn't get all the,
Oh, Robin. It's not really a motion though, is it?
You should have a motion. You did have a motion, didn't you?
All right, well.
We haven't.
Yeah, yeah.
Motion carries.
Yeah.
Number 11, review and approval to continue the IGA for the equipment rental for the road district.
So
You guys talked about this last month when I was not here and wanted it on the agenda, and then after watching the meeting, it appears you kind of resolved it that night, that,
I just have a question
sure.
about it, and my only question is for you, Mike. With coming into this new, can you just walk me through the process of what this was and how this came about? Like what the business plan was or what the agenda was for us to be leasing these vehicles? Like, can you just explain it to me? Because I kind of came in on it on the tail end. So they're your machines,
I have,
a dozer and an excavator?
yes.
Okay, so they're yours, and we've been leasing them from you for 8 years.
We have a lease agreement. It is for $0.
Okay,
The township agrees in the lease to insure it, insure them, maintain them. That's it.
and store them
Yes.
and fuel them.
And what?
And fuel them, we fuel them for obviously
Yes.
our job site, okay. So with that agreement, are you able to use them for personal reasons? Or is anybody else able to use them for personal reasons? I understand they're your machines, like I get
Yeah.
that, but because the township is using them as far as maintaining, storing, insurance, are you able to still use those in this last 8 years for personal reasons?
Yes.
Okay,
you maintain a separate
do you have I understand, do you pay for maintenance on them as well?
No.
So, and then how does it work? Because I've heard some discussion about paying to haul them to different sites. So then do we pay to haul them to your job site and then pay to haul them back?
No.
So you just take them?
I take them.
Okay.
When I have a place for them to go, whether I'm renting the machine out or I'm using the machine, myself or whoever's renting it pays to move it to that job.
Okay,
If and when the township wants the machine back to do something with it, they pay to move it back to the township.
even though we store them here, right? So
They
we're,
don't, they're not always stored here.
okay, so there's other spots
It's
they go.
not that this is their home base.
Okay.
They're here until I need them, and they're either on one of my jobs or,
Okay,
and until the township needs it.
so I appreciate you telling me because I was unaware of this. So how did this agreement come about? Like, who brought this agreement up as far as voting on this? Was it voted on by the township? Was it something that you brought to the table? Like, who brought this up? Because I'm just speaking from a taxpayer standpoint. This is like saying, if we're leasing it from you and we're using it and taxpayers are paying to maintain it and store it and insure it and everything, and then you're taking it for personal use, I guess for me, that seems like there's a gray area. So that's why I'm asking, where did this come up? Like, how did this come about?
This came about 8 years ago.
Okay.
When I went from being full-time in my business to part-time.
Okay,
It just seemed like a good opportunity for both me and the township. The township gets to use these machines for free, other than maintenance and insurance.
right.
And they're not sitting around rusting away from my point of view.
Did it ever come up about us purchasing those from you and just buying them outright instead of doing this agreement anymore? Because you said in the last meeting that they weren't worth much. I think you said they were 20 to 25,000, and we put like 1,400 hours on it in so many years. Did it ever come up that we could purchase them from you so we weren't doing this? Because
No.
I'm sure you can see, like, I'm coming into this and hearing about this, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute, we're borrowing his machines, we're paying for them, we're maintaining them, and then he's taking them when he needs them, and if anybody else is taking them and using them, it's like, it feels like it should just either be ours or yours, and we're not sharing it. And I mean, I get that it's a deal for both of us, but when it comes to taxpayer money, I feel like we don't wanna have a deal, we wanna have the right thing, so that's why I'm asking, who came up with this? So you did?
I did.
And was it voted on by the
No,
trustees?
it's not required to be voted on by the board. However, I brought the concept to the board.
Okay.
And asked for their input. It wasn't this board,
Right,
but I did bring it to the board and asked for their input, and it was,
yeah.
they didn't raise these concerns.
So again, back to my question about the offer to purchase them, because you can purchase machines, obviously, with your budget when you want. Did it ever come up for us just to purchase them so that we outright owned them?
I am not interested in selling them.
Okay, thank you. I didn't I wanted to get it from you exactly what was going on.
No, and
Cause it just, when I heard about it, I was kinda like, this is a, kind of a weird area, especially if we're maintaining them and you haven't paid any maintenance on them. Do you keep a log for the jobs that you take it to? Like to sign them out, like is there a log kept as far as when you use them for personal reasons, or it's just whenever you need them?
I have not kept them kind of records, but your statement that I haven't paid any maintenance is simply not true.
But I asked you if you paid maintenance and you said, no, we
In
do.
general, I don't, but I'll give you a for instance.
Yeah.
About 2 weeks ago, I used it on a side job,
Okay,
and I blew a $600 hydraulic hose. Well, I didn't come rushing back to the township to get the hose made.
okay,
I went to
fair.
hydraulic services and bought the hose.
Okay, fair, that's fair. Okay, thank you.
But the oil changes, that kind of service, that is done by the road district. However, the road district puts over 80% of the hours on the machines.
You said 1,400, so you
Yeah.
would say we're putting more hours on the machines than you were
Putting
doing for
4
personal
times
reasons.
the amount of, 4 to 5 times the amount of hours on the machines that I have.
Now, are you the only one that uses the machines, or are they going to anybody else that's for another site, like somebody else is using those besides yourself?
No, I rent the machine out from time to time.
Okay, so that's almost like another entity. Okay, thank you. Do you guys have any questions?
You rent it out to other people?
Yeah,
So it's not only being used by us, it's being used by you and then someone else. So there's 3 different parties that can be using those machines.
that's true.
And the township's maintaining?
And the town, yeah, okay. So,
I don't know, I got a couple little excerpts I've taken. One was out of the Law and Duties Handbook, page 303. It just says the highway commissioner cannot, however, use any township machinery or equipment, performance and services for individual citizens not connected with roads, streets, bridges, et cetera, either for hire or gratuitously. I mean, that's subject to interpretation from Scott or but I also have another excerpt I'd like to read too, out of the IDOT, General Administrative Duties, it's the Township Highway Commissioner, and it's endorsed by TOI, the IDOT, Illinois Technology Transfer Center, and under the equipment, in a subtitle of rarely loaned, equipment cannot be loaned to private industry or individuals. They can make agreements, so I get that, Mike. We're just kind of in a gray area because the machine is yours. And I guess, you know, the other thing I did want to read too out of there, This is out of the general administrative duties, was in equipment, somewhere in here I have it to where if you do enter an agreement, you should share the maintenance costs, and I get it's weighted that all of it isn't on you and it's not all in the township, but even then we should be sharing, and you just paid $600 for a hydraulic hose, but that said, it's just as all the points Joanna brought up, it just isn't perceived well. It isn't perceived well to me, it's not perceived well, I'd imagine the taxpayers looking in, and before you mentioned that it was a sweetheart deal, but I get it, it costs money to rent the machinery, it's gonna, you take this back and you don't wanna sell it to the township, we'd have to rent one, but you have other pieces of equipment in place. One thing I would probably suggest is maybe we look to see what a neighboring township has, and we could enter an intergovernmental agreement with them, and see what we can work out. But I'm not in favor of keeping this going forward just because we weren't the original ones to sign on to it, and just with the fact that we're doing all the maintenance on it, we're insuring it, we're storing it, and then you're renting it out to other people with motor oil that's paid for with tax money, and anything else that we've maintained on with tax money, it doesn't look good. So, I'm not in favor of going forward with this agreement. I know that kind of creates a void of a piece of equipment that we're gonna have to look into either budgeting for purchase or looking for an intergovernmental agreement or looking at renting and trying to stack the work that you have for that excavator on top of each other so that we can get the most utility out of the small time that we're gonna rent it, to try to maximize that for the taxpayers. But really, I'm just not in favor of going forward with it, just because of the perception. So I don't know if anybody else has anything else they wanna offer.
This is the first time I've read that rule in there. And it says straight out, a highway commissioner cannot, however, use any township machinery or equipment in performance of services for individual citizens not connected with roads, streets, alleys, bridges, etc., or either for hire or gratuitously. So theoretically, it doesn't matter if we rented it from you or rented it from anybody else, you can't leave the property.
It's not the
That-
township
It's not the
equipment.
township's though, it's his personal.
But it's under lease, it says in this, it's farther up here, for the lease or exchange of idle machinery, equipment, or tools belonging to the district, lease.
It's got it.
Yeah, there's two different sections. The first one that you read is a quote from a case from 1935, which quotes a case from 1919 and one from 88. So I think we need a little bit more context with that, because cases from 1935 are no longer considered good law. Unless it is in the book.
Could you speak up, please?
I'm doing my best. So I'm not sure that we can, I would have to read the entire case.
What's the book cover you have there? Let's see it.
But Tim quoted from page 303, that's what I'm looking at, which is what you just read.
Yeah, I don't know which book I'm just reading.
Oh, I don't, there's a more recent version of this one, there's a yellow one. So the highway commissioner has leased the equipment. I actually haven't seen the lease to my recollection, so I'm not sure of the terms. I don't know if it's exclusive or not. So, I think there's some terms that would need to be reviewed.
Who pays when you're renting it out to another entity? Who pays for the freight or the logistics on that?
I already told Johanna that whomever is using the machine pays for the move. But look, my wife made this real simple, she doesn't want the township using our equipment anymore. After last month's questions, the obvious lack of appreciation for using two pieces of equipment for free for 8 years for nothing other than maintenance, and the insurance cost us 0. So, this is looking a gift horse in the mouth, but it's a real simple decision for us. She just doesn't want me to let the township use it anymore. So,
I
there's
respect
nothing to
that.
argue about.
I know, I'm not gonna argue with you, but I respect that, but on the other side of the coin, you had said that that was gonna sit there and rust, and in return, it was stored inside, because under statute.
It's never been stored inside.
Okay, well, you're supposed to, by statute, store everything inside, right? All your equipment, isn't it supposed to
Not
be?
leased equipment.
Okay. Well, I guess I missed on that one, but that said, instead of rusting, you got a excavator that's been gone through, maintained, and used. You know, when equipment's not used, you know what happens to it, degrades faster.
So you think because the township used my equipment for free, that it's increased in value?
I would say it didn't decrease as fast as it would if it was a city.
So this is the same point,
Well, I'm not gonna argue with you about it anymore, I'm done with this conversation, I think it's
so
absurd.
there's nothing to vote on, or, so if we're done, it's a mute point now, we're gonna discontinue the agreement. Alright, number 12. Reports by supervisor. The only thing I wanna mention is that TOI virtual, the meeting is virtual. If anyone would like to join, let me know, I will sign them up. That's really all I have right now. Joni,
I have nothing.
Mike,
Well, we are preparing for winter, finishing up our, paving programs. Trying to avoid the weather.
When do you anticipate being done paving?
When the weather no longer allows us to do such.
That's
I
been my
will
concern
try
every
to-
year.
What's that?
That's been my concern every year is,
I am going to try to tame myself a little bit in that regard. I will try not to push the envelope.
I don't have any problem if you're doing governmental agreement paving somewhere else, because that's somebody else's dollar. It's just when you do the Nunda roads out of compliance, that's when I have concern.
It's
So
not
I
out
know,
of compliance, we're gonna have to agree to disagree on that.
I know what the IDOT spec book says.
Yeah, but there's a difference, Rob, between MFT funds and local funds. I don't have to, townships, Scott wrote this letter last year for you, and you're missing the point. Local funds don't have to follow the same rules as MFT funds.
So what you're saying is the road district commissioner can ignore the IDOT rules in the state of Illinois for how material should be placed.
Aren't they really recommendations, or are they
No,
rules?
they're rules. Which is fine, you said you're
I'm
gonna try
saying
to be
there's
done,
two
you're gonna
sets
be
of-
trying to be done early, that's great, that's
Right.
good. That's all was my
I'm
concern,
gonna
and you
try
said.
not to push the envelope so
Okay.
much. With the weather.
Right,
But stuff does happen,
right, but we're trying to still get compaction too.
absolutely.
Mark, not here. Joanne, nothing.
No report?
Karen,
You did go back and look, the video did work last?
yes, it did.
Okay,
We are, okay.
I was just curious. That's it.
Tim,
I got nothing right now.
Bob,
Mike, I understand you're getting 2.16 million for non-dedicated roads.
That's not right.
Okay, but it's close to that.
Yeah.
Okay. How are you gonna spend it?
Um,
I mean, is it land acquisition, is it excavating, is it engineering? I'm just curious how you think
It's
this.
certainly gonna be all of the above.
Okay,
You know, I don't know how much land acquisition is gonna be available, you know, these are really tight streets. You know, some of the right-of-ways are 20 and 25 feet wide. The people are built right out to the road.
Right.
Right-of-way lines. They're very difficult roads. It's 2.2 million even, 3 miles of road. And, we'll do our best. What we're gonna do with that money is track it separately. We're gonna keep track of that $2.2 million and make sure that it gets spent on them roads. It'll be in our, we'll have a separate line item in the budget for them. But the difference is, in the past, we've worked on them roads, the money has been, the material money has come out of the road district budget as the labor. We'll bill that fund for our labor to put it back into the permanent art road fund, into the labor fund.
How many of on those roads do you have a problem with people, have crossed over in the right of way, and they have obstructions in the way that you have to, I mean, actual physical buildings or stuff like that, shouldn't be there?
Several.
Okay.
And in one case, we have a garage, a brand new garage, that a county judge gave to former county clerk Mary McClellan. Didn't give her the garage, gave her the right of way. She claimed it by adverse possession and took 20 feet of the 60-foot right of way. Now we got this jog in the street. So there are some challenges. We're just gonna work around them. We most likely won't buy the garage.
Okay. That's all I got.
Number 13, new business.
For next meeting, I'd like to make a motion that we discontinue the lease agreement with the road district and Mr. Mike Lesbrand. I understand he already negated it, but I think we should just terminate it officially.
You don't have that, it's not in your purview.
Okay, I don't know if it's an annual renewal that was supposed to be done or not, I'm
Look,
just saying.
it has nothing to do with you. I just gave it to you. That's my decision to make at the road district. It's not your decision to make.
Okay.
So you don't have to cancel the lease. I'm just telling you,
Okay.
there isn't gonna be another lease.
Okay. That's like I said, I don't know if it was an annual renewal we're supposed to be doing, or.
The
was it
lease
one-
expired, just so you know, the lease expired at the end of the last term. We haven't wrote a new one yet.
Okay. Then I rescind that,
Okay.
if it's done.
Anything else?
Yeah, what happened with the mulch?
Okay, here's what happened. We had 2 big storms, one in August, one in September.
Right.
We take mulch, or we take brush from McHenry Township, Door Township, the city of Prairie Grove, Oakwood Hills, school districts. We had so much mulch that we had 100 tandem axle dump truck loads to get rid of. And we had 4 days to get rid of it. The reason we had just 4 days to get rid of it is because it filled our entire backyard. And we host the tire drive every fall for the whole county. All the municipalities, all the townships bring their tires of any kind, tractor, truck, residential tires, to Nunda. And we end up with thousands of tires that we store from Monday to Friday, and then a vendor comes and picks them up. So we needed our yard space 4 days after we finished collecting brush. So we were still processing the brush. We've got this yard full of brush. I'm sitting on my deck off my bedroom on a Sunday when I've got Monday through Thursday to get rid of this stuff, and I'm thinking, where am I gonna get rid of 1,000 yards, 100 truckloads of mulch, without taking it all to Midwest Organics in the fall, when our residents aren't looking to have mulch delivered? And furthermore, I can't possibly afford the time to deliver it in a 1-ton dump truck, 2 yards at a time. We just don't have enough time. So I'm sitting on my deck having a cup of tea, and I'm looking at the woods behind my house, and I'm like, I could spread a bunch out there. And I didn't really know how much, because I didn't do any calculations. So I had a truck start hauling it over there, and then I moved my dozer there, and I spread it out in the woods. Well, often, when we're doing stuff, people will call in and say, why are you doing this? Well, this time they happened to call the newspaper, and that's why you all heard about it.
So it wasn't something that was offered to other residents, correct?
In advance,
Because I just read about it, and it said in the paper that it was quoted that it was offered to residents.
the reporter asked me over and over again when I changed the policy.
Right,
There's no policy change required. I didn't change any policy. When we have a surplus of a waste material, I just have to get rid of it at the cheapest, way that I can find. And so, that was my way of getting rid of it. You know, last time, we had a surplus of mulch, I gave it to the sod farm. Boy, I heard about that, because they took it and resold it. You know, so it doesn't seem to matter what I do with this mulch, I'm gonna take heat for it. But the 45 loads that we put in the woods behind our house saved the taxpayers $3,600, because it's $80 a load to dump the stuff at Midwest Organics. We still have twice as much at the park as we've ever had before. The park is our overflow over here on Pleasant Hill Road. Our yard is still overfull with mulch, and we don't know what to do with this stuff.
could you, the tire drive that you were having, could you have rescheduled that to a later date to maybe allow for more time to unload that? Because you said you only had 4 days, so I didn't know if that was something that could have been rescheduled later, and then it would have given more time to get rid of it.
I don't know, I can't answer your question, but you could call the McHenry County Health
So
Department
they-
and ask them if I could have rescheduled it.
Okay,
I just know that we have a hard time getting a date from them every year. This is a IDOT, I don't know if it's IDOT or IDNR, I think it's, no, not IDNR, IEPA. It's an IEPA program. The county, and we work in conjunction with the county health department to provide the program.
okay, thank you.
So
And
I can't tell you if I could have.
did you, were you the only one that took mulch, or did it go to anybody else?
10 loads went to Port Barrington, 6 loads went to,
Residential houses or
no,
commercial?
to the village of Port Barrington, to their parks.
To their parks, okay, so they got.
They, by the way, they couldn't take it before the 4 days were up. That was post, Prairie Grove did accept 6 loads, and I believe we took about 12 to Island Lake. And we did take 10 to a resident, who was building a track on their dirt bike track over off of Fernview and Fernwood. That went to a resident. And another resident did ask for a 10-yard load, off of Crystal Lake Avenue. But finding people that can take large amounts of mulch in the fall is extremely difficult.
Yeah, okay, thank you, just wanted to find out what happened.
That's what happened.
Mike, isn't it true that we had extensive storms with extensive amounts of trees that went down? Wouldn't you say it'd be fair?
We
Just say that you
declared it
had a
disaster
larger
area,
amount?
So I would say, yes, we had extensive storms with lots of trees that went down.
More so than normal? Yeah.
So I take my job real personal. I thought that it was a great deal for the residents to be able to use. I respect the disagreement that we have over the 2 pieces of equipment, but no different than delivering that mulch, to my house. I believed it was in the best interest of the residents.
I get that.
And if any one of you have a yard where you can have my bulldozer brought over and spread 45 or 50 loads in your woods, we'd be glad to do it, because we still have way more of that stuff than we can get rid of.
I get it, and I appreciate where you're coming from. I just, as an elected official, sometimes perception, which comes out, as you know, because you've been dealing with it for a long time, can come across a bad way. And the machine leasing agreement, I just don't feel that that was ever something that we should have done. And I understand that it was probably a good thing at the time, but we need to be representing what's good for the township. And I understand that you're saying we were saving money, but the perception of the fact that we're borrowing machinery from someone who owns it, and then we're paying for it, and then they're still using it for personal gains, just doesn't sit well with a lot of people, especially people that didn't know about it. And that's the big thing, like, a lot of people just didn't know that that was going on. And so now it's gonna end, which is good, we stopped it. And then the thing with the mulch, I get that, I understand that we had to get rid of it, but there were probably a lot of people who maybe weren't 65 that maybe would have taken some. I understand that you were getting rid of it in large quantities, so to take smaller amounts to people is not cost effective, I get that, but it just doesn't look right.
Perception without truth is untruth. If you add the truth to perception, you have reality.
Fair,
I'm about saving money.
I get
I
that.
can deal with questions, as long as I'm not boxed into a corner or painted into a corner. I'm glad to answer any and all questions.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Any other new business?
I just had one more question if Michael answered. How much of that mulch you think of the mass that we had came from outside of Nunda rural?
Good
How much
question.
came from municipalities is what I'm gonna ask you.
Well, Prairie Grove got hammered,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so a lot.
Right, and they don't have the means, methods, or anything to get rid of
Right,
it.
we actually cleaned all their stuff up.
Right.
Our crew spent, I forget, 2 days, I think, in Prairie Grove. Oakwood Hills actually paid us. We worked for Prairie Grove for free. Oakwood Hills paid the overtime, to keep the guys here on Friday, because we worked 4/10. There was a lot in both communities. I told you McHenry Township brings theirs here. We do process their brush, but they take, in addition to that 1,000 yards, every time McHenry came with a load, they left with a load of mulch. That was the deal we made, because we just didn't have room for this stuff. I don't know if I answered your question the way you wanted.
I just wondered if you had a percentage, but, you could guess.
I would say that 50–60% of the material that got brought in here was from the 100 miles of Nunda Township Road. The other 40 or so % would have been from Oakwood Hills, Door Township, McHenry Township, and Prairie Grove.
Did City of Crystal Lake or the City of McHenry or Island Lake or any of those municipalities bring anything in?
Island Lake does. I forgot about Island Lake. Oh, and Port Barrington, their stuff was here too. City of Crystal Lake is very independent. The City of McHenry has a subcontractor come in and chew all their stuff. And, oh, by the way, we tried to give it to them too, the mulch. They didn't want it.
Yes, I would think they would.
I do have an idea that isn't my own for the mulch, because it, maybe delivering it to my backyard wasn't the best perception. The idea came from my mechanic. When he read the article in the paper, he came in the office the next day and he says, "Have you ever thought of going out to bid on mulch?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, in reverse. You sell the mulch, put it out to bid. When you have a surplus, that maybe the sod farm will buy it from you, or maybe Dahlman's will buy it, or who knows."
Right.
So that I think is a very good idea. We're gonna check with Joni when her schedule and see when we can set up our next bid opening and see if that works.
yeah, maybe put some feelers out there first to see if they have interest, because I know
Exactly.
the Dolmans called me as soon as you started delivering mulch for free, and they're like, how do we compete with that business model? You know, here we are paying taxes and the township's delivering mulch for free. And I know I hammered you the first time, you said it's for seniors and for,
Veterans.
veterans, and I said, cool, fine with that.
Well, just so we have history correctly, when I got here 8.5 years ago, they were delivering mulch to everybody 4 days a week with 3 trucks. Now, Casey or I deliver the mulch on Fridays with 1 truck.
I'm aware of that was happening, I was buying votes.
I don't know what it was, but it's not what we're here for.
Right.
But trying to shut everybody off 8 years ago, what seemed like an impossible task. And what do you do with this stuff? You gotta get rid of it somehow.
Any other new business?
I need clarification, because new business that I got was Joanna's question on the mulch. Do we really have new business? What, that was more of a question.
Doesn't matter
Yeah.
that much.
I think
It's not, none?
It's under, it was discussed,
it was, yeah, under,
discussed under that.
All right, number 14, any old business? Seeing none. Number 15, any public comments?
Yeah. You don't put this on the internet, right?
It's taping right now.
Taping?
Yeah.
It's on YouTube.
Oh, it is?
Yes, it
Oh,
is.
splendid. When you talk to the Algonquin Township folks, would you suggest to them that they should follow your example?
Sure thing.
Thanks.
That's it? Okay. Anything else?
I'd like
Any
to
other
thank the
public?
gentleman that came in tonight. I don't know who he is, and
Thanks for coming.
Ken Hancock, I live at 112 Maple Street for 37 years now in Boulevard Park. Anybody know where that is? No. It's off of Roberts Road. I think Mike's doing a fantastic job. I got a paved road, which before I didn't have. And I got snow plowing, which before I didn't have. So, and it's clean. You know, he's cleaned up from these storms, great. Lake County has still got stuff all along 176 going in. So we're all nice and clean. I think he's doing a fantastic job.
were you on a non-dedicated road, or was it a private subdivision, or what's the, I don't.
Well, it's part of Boulevard Park. It's, off of Roberts Road. Maple Avenue goes all the way across on south of Island Lake.
Right.
Okay, and south of 3D Bowl and everything. And for 35 years, I lived on that road with potholes that would swallow your car. And
Right.
then when
Where
we
was
had-
the funding for those roads before? I mean, did you guys, you were a private subdivision and you guys had your own personal maintenance?
Yeah, which was nothing.
Right,
Because
right,
nobody
usually
could
you,
afford
right,
it.
you can't usually get homeowners to all.
Yeah, and I mean, it would snow in the winter, and they couldn't have possibly gotten an ambulance or a fire truck or a police car down that road. We would call, nobody would plow it. So I ended up paying people to plow the whole road, and me and my 2 sons shoveled the whole thing twice. That was fun.
It sounds like tons of fun.
But I'm just thrilled now, paved, not a drop of water sits on it. And I think the snowflakes are afraid to land on it, because I drive from Northbrook home at night and through snow and everything, I get home and mine's like a landing field at O'Hare. It's perfect, you know, after being on the tollway in 176, which has been a nightmare. So, you know, I appreciate what he's doing, because certainly nothing happened there before.
Right. So you are a dedicated road?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you say your name again?
Kenneth Hancock.
Kenneth Hancock?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing nothing else, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion carries. Meeting adjourned, 8:05. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
then I'll have to carry it around with me. Thank you.